Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Those that have been following along will know that I've been dealing with a sort of reoccurring vibration problem in my 71 Chevelle. And as it turns out, we have another bent axle. And I'm going to show you how we figured that out and what we're going to do about that right now. In the previous video, we discovered a wobble in the wheel, which as expected was a bent axle. This being my second bent left rear axle. But we did not know what part of the axle was bent or what was causing it. So I took the axle to Andrew's house to compare it in his Mosier 12 bolt that also runs 33 spline axles of the same width, only to find out my axles would not slide into his Eaton posi carrier. As it turns out, the splines cut for a true track are different than splines cut for an Eaton posi. Good information if you ever want to change your limited slip. With this test a bust, I took his left rear axle back to my house and put it in my housing, and to my surprise, his axle appeared to be bent as well. I also noticed bent studs just like mine. To confirm, we put all of our axles on a lathe, and sure enough, we had two bent left rear axles. Look at the line where all this is out. The same way, we have a high spot here. On Andrew's axle, it's the same as mine. The high point is right in this area right here, so it's on the shaft, which obviously bends the flange, 19th thou here. So we got a bend like this. We also spun the right rear axles and found them to be acceptably straight. So this is my passenger side axle, the right side, and as you can see, it is really good. Bit of a high spot right here, but minute. And then the flange is excellent. Came out to 1 thou there and 1 thou basically at the bearing. So this axle is straight in my eyes. I was in contact with Mosier and they were pretty accommodating with my situation, so I went and ordered up a new axle. Once it arrived, we put it on the lathe to see just how straight it was, brand spanking new. We put the new Mosier axle on the lathe and we measured it out, and we're 6 thou out right here on the shaft. On the flange, we are 2 thou out right here, 5 thou on the face of it, which just happens to be where the hole is. It's probably just coincidence. On the bearing, we are 6 thou out, and it's out right in the same line right here. We did spin the bearing to make sure it was not the bearing itself, and it is in fact the race. So I would say this axle is pretty straight. We can go ahead and throw it in the car. So this axle was for Andrew, and it is no more than 2 thou out, so it is extremely straight. Very happy about that. Unfortunately, it came with 7/16 studs and no bearing, so this one does have to go back. But in terms of trueness, it is excellent. So what is causing our axles to bend? Well, the truth is we don't know, because nobody can give a concrete reason to why this is happening. What we do know is we have three left rear axles on two different cars that are similarly set up. Manual transmission and 454 big blocks, similar weights. And they're all bending at the shaft, not at the flange. We also know that if it was a case of too much power, we'd be twisting our splines, but we're not doing that. But we are, however, bending our wheel studs. Just how bent are they? Well, you can see right here just how much they are bending. Now, how they're bending is a twisting motion. So as the axle rotates, the wheel's staying still and bending the studs in a twisting form. Now, Andrew and myself, we're running spacers. I run a 1/2 inch spacer and Andrew runs a 1/4 inch spacer, which I think he's going to get rid of. And I can understand the argument that could create the wheel studs to bend, because effectively you are putting more of the weight and the load outboard on the stud, on the shaft of the stud, rather than having it right tight against the flange. So I kind of get that, though there are people that say that's not true, it shouldn't make any difference. There seems to be no scientific studies to prove one way or the other, but I can understand the argument. But I still don't see how that would bend the axle shaft, because there are guys out there that are running like 1.5-inch spacers and deep dish, heavy off-road wheels that are like 100 pounds, and even in an off-road application, they're not bending the axles from just driving around or bouncing around or whatever. So I don't really get it. It doesn't make sense to me. What I do know is I'm going to take every precaution possible to try to prevent this from happening again. One thing I'm going to do to try and prevent the studs and axle from bending in the future is swap to ARP wheel studs, part number 1007704. You can see the difference between the Mosier stud. The ARP is about 1/2 inch longer. But more importantly, check out the head of the stud. You can see the ARP is significantly thicker, and because of that, we are going to have to do some modifications. Because I am running Wilwood disc brakes with the internal parking brake, the ARP wheel stud head contacts the spring here, as well as this little metal piece down here. So what I'm going to do is grind this down to about 400 thou, and I'm going to make a little notch down here on the bottom of this tab, just to make sure I have good clearance. Now, another consideration I had, and even Mosier themselves said it might be possible, is a bent housing. Though people say that if I had a bent housing, at least to a significant extent, that putting in the axle should create a bind and it would be quite difficult. And as you're about to see, that is not the case. So another preventative measure I'm going to take is installing these little sleeves, which I made out of this pipe here. I don't know what it's for, but it was laying around. And what I found was there is a 50 thou gap between the stud and the spacer, which allows it to move. And by putting in these sleeves, that should prevent that. So we got it all put back together. In the short drive so far, I haven't noticed any difference, but that's normal because we're going such slow speeds. But we're gonna hit the highway here, and we're gonna see if there's any difference if the vibration has gone away. To about 113. The speed that we had the bad vibration before, it seems better now. Like the shifter isn't moving very much. I don't feel a whole lot in the seat. Nothing in the pedals. But why are we vibrating so much in 90 miles an hour? Sorry, 90 kilometers an hour. And we'll let off the throttle. Hey, that sound might be gone in the back though. Well, that sucks. I was really hoping that the new axle was going to fix that vibration, but unfortunately not the case. I did take the car over to Andrew's house and we did put it on the lift, and we pulled the drive shaft off just to check to make sure the U-joints were still okay, and they checked out fine. We also checked all the nuts and bolts to make sure everything was tight, and while nothing was loose by hand, you could throw a wrench on it and give it a turn on quite a few bolts, and that did seem to make a slight difference, surprisingly, but of course that wasn't going to fix it completely. Another thing that I tried is I measured the runout on the wheel once again, and I had about 45 thou of runout off the barrel right here, so concentric, and 32 thou on the ring right here, so lateral. So I rotated the wheel on the hub. I was green to green before, and now I am over here, so I moved it 2 studs. And that improved it to about 24 thou concentric and 9 thou on the lateral, so quite a bit better. I also did it to the other wheel, and to my surprise, it didn't make much difference at all. Heck, maybe it's even a little bit worse. I don't know, but not the result I was hoping for. So what else could it be? I do have quite a lot of flex in that cross member. It goes up and down a bit. Is that enough to create a vibration at highway speeds and nowhere else? I don't know. Do I have a bent drive shaft? It shouldn't be. Denny's makes great stuff, but I've been running it for a couple years now. Who knows? But either way, I'm going to have to do quite a lot more work in this just to find out what's going on, and if I find out, I will absolutely let you guys know. And if you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe, and thanks for watching.